Beautiful Sunday evening. Welcome to the Jacobson Report. John Jacobson here with Sean Revis on KOFO 1220, 103.7 FM. With a thank you to Jim and Cindy Jandrin for liferunners.org. Go to liferunners.org and get your t-shirt and run and walk for life. Help those expectant mothers and babies along the way. And also, thanks to them at Midwest Renewable Energy, LLC. Renewable fuels, it's lean, it's clean, and it's green. Energy for a strong America via ethanol. We are here today, folks. Mick Gutah joins us on this Memorial Day weekend. Michael Gutah, known as Mick, affectionately by his friends, a banking legend in the state of Iowa, the longtime president and CEO, now in quasi-retirement from Trainer State Bank, now TS Bank and the TS Banking Group, former head of the Iowa Division of Banking. He was the supervisor. As long as we're on the topic, another bevy of biographicals in the financial industry, including his leadership ties at Iowa State University, as well as the work that he has done for the Federal Home Loan Bank as its president nationally for us. Mick is very active in his church, in his community, winning many awards, including the Mercy Hospital Hall of Fame, along with his wife Judy, and other organizations such as Children's Square. Mick and Judy have been married now for over 50 years. And what we're bringing Mick on today is, guys, they say never meet your heroes. Well, I'm glad I met Mick Gutah because he is my hero. This is radio, but if you want to know what Mick looks like, just draw up John Wayne in his mid-60s, and that's what Mick Gutah looks like. And you saw John Wayne in Green Berets, but Mick Gutah was the real Vietnam combatant. Bronze Star, 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses, one of the first Americans over the ordnance in Laos when the war was expanded during Vietnam. Mick drew so much enemy fire, he was literally almost strafing the ground with his choppers as he was flying Loaches, Hueys, and Cobras, both in attack mode and search and rescue mode for our American GIs. And Mick, I can't believe it, these Vietnam vets like you now are approaching the completion of 8 decades here in the USA. And Mick, you've the once future and always patriot. It is so great to have you join us in Eastern Iowa this morning. How are you, Mick?
Doing good. Thank you for calling, John.
Well, Mick, I know that you have done some radio work with me before out in the Omaha area. You and Judy did your love letters correspondence back before email and back before fax machines in the 1960s. Your long, perduring love letters while she was here in Iowa and you were in Vietnam. Those letters won an IBNA award for large market radio excellence. And Mick, we thought we'd share you with a newer audience today. Mick, what does Memorial Day mean to you?
Well, Memorial Day to me is remembering the guys' truth and for their families, that there's not a day that goes by that we don't think about. The special part of Memorial Day is that the nation joins it. Memorial Day on Monday or even the whole weekend, remembering those people who have gone before us and have dealt with the defense of not only our country, but our fellow people in this world.
Here with Mick Gutah, Captain, U.S. Army retired, Cobra attack helicopter pilot, and Bronze Star and Distinguished Flying Cross awardee. Mick, it has been well over half a century since those flying days in Vietnam and in Laos, and yet for you, the memory of these who have gone before us, colleagues that you served with who did not come home, those memories are still fresh for you, aren't they?
They're very fresh, and part of that is just because of the impact that it had on my life. All those situations occurred, but also I surround myself with a lot of Army stuff, pictures of my buddies that we did live, some we didn't live, and it's just important for me to have those memories close by, even though I do suffer from PTSD, from all those people that I lost, but also part of it is from all the people I killed. And it's just important to keep them in my mind and make sure that the family knows the story to me as well.
Mick is a great man. I would say the greatest living American that I know. I had the privilege of working under his tutelage, years at Trainer State Bank where Mick was legend. He casts a giant shadow. He bestrides the world like a colossus, as we say. And, Mick does so much work continuing to serve, helping our veterans, including on some of the veterans boards there in Pottawatomie County, Council Bluffs area. Mick, any stories about the guys that never came back, your fondness for them, and sometimes the seemingly randomness of who is spared and who doesn't make it back? What does that conjure up for you? And you were spared. The Lord obviously needed those fellas to join him back then when they left us, what in our mind would seem to be way too early, but yet he kept you here for a purpose too. How have you sorted that and processed that over the last half century plus?
It's, as I'm sure you hear from a lot of other veterans, that's a difficult part of life, is wondering. The question that comes to my mind is always, why me? Why was I the one that survived? My friends that I grew very close to didn't, and some of them, in fact, some of them I didn't well because, one guy that I'm thinking of right now, he was gone within 2 weeks after getting there. He was a very young warrant officer, a pilot, and we lost him in 2 weeks. There were those relationships, just getting to know the people. And then there were those who had been together for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, were the people at that time.
Do you see Vietnam as an important cog in winning, ultimately, the Cold War?
Yes, I do. And of course, the domino theory gets put down a lot. A lot of people don't want to support that had any positive effect in our world, but I really feel it did. In fact, 12 years ago, this summer, our family, kids and grandkids, and a couple of other friends took me back to Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. And it was just an amazing, unbelievable trip. I wasn't even sure that I wanted to take, but I wouldn't give it up for anything today. But the reason that was such is because of the amazing progress that we saw. The last night we were in Vietnam, we stayed at a hotel in Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City. And when Judy and I went to bed, we turned the lights off, we left the drapes up. We get into bed and we look across a block or two, and there's an office building over there, 12, 14 feet tall probably. And that building changed color. And I assume the surface of that building was embedded with LEDs, some kind of a marketing plan for whoever was there. And it just, things like that just were amazing. And the other thing that when I came back, so many of my buddies, what it was like. One guy asked me, what about out in the boonies where we were? I said, they look very much the same, small villages and rice paddies. I said, the rice paddies are now full of New Holland and John Deere tractors. Instead of water buffalo. Wow. You just don't see nearly the water buffalo as you used to. And just so many things like that. A place where we stayed, slept at night in a foxhole on the Vietnam side of the border into Laos invasion. We went to that same exact location, Lang Bay, and it's a village today. It's got beautiful, kind of like strip mall, office building, beautiful landscaping, concrete curbs, surface streets, and everything like that. And it's just the progress is amazing. When we were driving out of, I think, back toward the coast near Da Nang, we come along the highway and almost to the coast, looking up at the bus are on, and there's this high-rise building, and it was upper, I forgot which brand it was now, but one of Marriott's upper scale hotels right there on the beach on the South China Sea, and just a beautiful setting. And of course, the beach all along is beautiful. And they've made so much progress. When we were staying in Ho Chi Minh City, if you stood at the front door of our hotel and looked across the street, I've been in New York many times with like Fifth storefront, and their displays are just like we would expect to see in a capital city. It's very impressive. So the progress has been very rewarding to me. And one short story was I got to talking to a local guy through our translators, and he was telling me about his business that he owns. And we had conversed a lot about this. I said, how can you own your own business in this country? And he looked at me and he said, we have to give money to the government. And I said, yes, we do too. We call ours taxes. We call ours taxes. What do you call yours?
Here with the greatest guy I know, Mick Gutah. Go ahead, Mick.
So
finish that. Yeah.
Capitalism is progressing in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. It's very people amazing.
Here with our authentic American hero, Mick Gutah. Mick has done so much work. Mick was asked by our government to go over, and when the Cold War ended, Mick was called on to go over there and teach them and advise them, consult. Mick, I'm going to go into it right now. I want to save the love letters with Judy and specifically your Christian faith for a little bit later. But right now, I want to talk about this incredible moment that I don't understand how people have the capacity to do this, but I saw Ronald Reagan forgive his shooter, John Hinckley. I saw Pope John Paul II forgive his would-be assassin, Mehmet Ali Agca. Mick, you came face to face with the enemy on this tour of Vietnam, your erstwhile enemy from decades before, and it wasn't combative. Talk about that. It's an amazing story.
It was very warm relationships that we developed with not only the step-on guides that came on our bus and took us to places, but just meeting people on the streets or in hotels, things like that. And actually, at one point, in fact, it was the last day we were there. We were in Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City, and we went to the Capitol. And I wanted to go up on the top of the roof of that, and they let us do that after the tour because I've served ice cold cocoa and water. We get up there, and one of the people went with us, my roommate, I lived with him. And so we're up there having a water or cocoa or something. And I think it was 9 people, looked about our age, and they were in green, appeared to be military uniform. And my roommate, Harold, said to me, "Who was it?" I don't know. So it's a tour guide, interpreter, and he says, "I think they're retired military from Vietnam, north of it." So we ended up talking. So here, these are the same people that we're fighting against. In fact, when we shared some of our stories and I told them about the invasion, the Laos person invasion of Chapone, one of those guys was the guy on the ground shooting at me, an anti-aircraft quad 15 gun.
Amazing.
And I was shooting back at him 4,000
Amazing.
rocket and everything like that. And we shook hands. We had some hugs. We got
amazing.
Pictures taken. And they, like I've said before, they respect you so much. They want to be like us, see the freedom and development type of thing.
Absolutely amazing story. They were shooting handshakes and embraces. Incredible stuff from Captain Michael Mick Gutah, U.S. Army retired, Huey Loach, and Cobra helicopter pilot, 2 distinguished flying crosses, Bronze Star, a lifetime of service in banking for veterans and in the ag community, as a Patriot ambassador for us with ag consulting over in Eurasia. And Mick has just done so many wonderful things. Mick, let's talk about the importance of your Christian faith and what that meant to you in Vietnam and how it has helped you reflect over these years subsequent to coming home again.
Well, my Christian faith was important to me when I was young. I had been selected to be the leader of a large Southwest Iowa organization, the United Church Youth. And so I was going from church to church and speaking the lecture. And actually at that point in time in late high school, I developed the thought that I thought I might want to go into the ministry. But I was also thinking about what was happening, presumably the domino theory. And my belief was that those people's right to practice their faith in God was taken away from them.
It was. You're right. There was a big issue with that. Yeah. It's not written in the history books a lot, but both Korea and Vietnam involved a lot of atheistic hatred against God and against the rights of people to worship as they wanted to as Christians. Continue, Mick. You're spot on there.
Well, and so like I said, I thought I wanted to be a pastor, and then at that point during that time, probably still in high school, I realized the only reason I felt I was involved in ministry is because I thought Mick looked good at the pulpit speaking. That didn't have anything to do with Christ. So that kind of fell by the wayside. And then I became to the point where I started thinking I wanted to be a missionary. And I thought maybe I was going to end up in the jungle. Then that evolved into being called a specialty degree infantry officer. And that was the direction up until my junior year at Iowa State in Arlington. In fact, it's the same year I met my wife.
Hey, you got all these Big 12 guys listening in from K-State and KU here. They like that Iowa State vibe. Big 12 got to hang together.
You bet. And so anyway,
and she is the prettiest girl in the state of Iowa, Mick. You did pull the top girl in the state. She wasn't as breathtakingly beautiful woman.
She still is. So anyway, they came and asked me, "Mick, do you want to fly helicopters?" I had an airplane when I was an 8, never given up the dream of flying. And so they came and asked me if I wanted to fly helicopters. Immediately, I agreed with that one. They said, if you pass these tests and then pass your flight physical this summer to duty and flights.
Wow.
And so they gave us all these, and that didn't tell us anything about it. They could pass. And then that summer on active duty at Fort Riley, I passed my flight physical, and that got me into flight school. And as I said, the calling was all part of the mission work.
Right.
I wanted to be there and helping people continue their practice, believe their faith practicing God. And on our trip back in 2013, 12 years ago, it was rewarding too, because we not only experienced, we went into several Catholic churches and got to see the beauty of the people we're going to worship. Plus, we knew that there were all other Christian missionaries that were there, expanding their faith and working to people. And they were allowed to do that. They had the freedom to do that. If we wouldn't have done what we did, I practiced their faith, would have been able.
I think you're right, Mick. I think you're absolutely spot on with that. Mick, I got to touch on the, there's these different plays on Broadway, love letters and all of that, but nothing tops the real life love letters that cemented your bond with Judy while you guys were thousands of miles away from each other in an era where you couldn't even telephone, let alone fax or email or text for our younger listeners. It was by snail mail, written on parchment, sent thousands of miles by planes, trains, automobiles, and boats, sometimes a gap of weeks. And Mick, talk about the letters, you and Judy.
Well, one thing people may not realize is we always numbered our letters. Obviously, they didn't arrive sometimes in order, and sometimes they came 4 or 5 at a time. Because she and I wrote each other. We wrote each other almost every day. And so you sit down, open them in order, so it makes sense,
Interesting.
And so that was kind of neat. But back to your comment, John, about no telephone calls. We actually were able to, not very often, but maybe 4 times or so, I was able to call Judy on what they called the MARS, the military assisted radio system. And there are shortwave operators, military in Vietnam, and shortwave operators in the western part of the United States. In fact, Barry Goldwater's home was used extensively by many shortwave operators to receive those calls.
Yeah, he was a big ham radio shortwave guy, Goldwater, yeah.
Yes, he was. So we were able to talk to each other in that way a few times.
Wow.
But the interesting thing was you had to always, when you got done with what you were going to say, you had to say over. And when she got done, you had to say what she said and then say over.
Wow.
And so you'd end up saying, honey, I love you, over. I love you too, over. So anyway, that we did get to just a handful of and one time I was in Saigon, no idea what I walked by a telephone. People might remember what telephone was.
I sure do.
And I looked at that and I thought, I wonder.
Oh, wow.
And it was at night. Daytime, she was teaching in Hinckley, Iowa. And I called the high school and got the principal, because the principal had given me his number.
Wow.
So he went and took over her class, and she came to his office to talk on
Oh,
the
my
telephone
goodness.
that one time. Anyway, those are just very special moments. I knew that she was okay and she was still alive, because day in, day out, hour after hour, she didn't know. Still going.
It's amazing. And you have this beautiful treasure trove of letters now for the future family legacy to look at. Beautiful handwritten correspondences. It's a lost art, but it was definitely a feature of wartime correspondences. As a matter of fact, if you watch the Ken Burns specials on the Civil War, the most poignant moments are those letters written to loved ones afar, contemplating life and death, the cause. These are just beautiful letters. We've got an archive of Ken Judy sharing some of those on some of previous programs out in Omaha and Southwest Iowa. Mick, I have seen you do several of these public addresses, either on Memorial Day or for other auspicious events. You've been at the Strategic Air Command Museum in Omaha. You did the big event at Trainer. There's a static display of the helicopter there in Trainer. You've given a lot of talks on Memorial Day. If you had to freshen it up for us here right now on radio, what would be your key takeaway or two on this Memorial Day to tell us or to remind us as Americans, many now of whom, my college kids that I teach, Mick, the Vietnam War is as far away from them as World War I was away from me when I was in grade school. And we've lost most now of our Korean and World War II vets. You guys were the vanguard, that Vietnam era. You're all hitting that 80 mark, give or take a few either way, some older. What would you say today, especially to our young generation, for whom you talking about this would even be like my father talking to me about the Korean War back when our children were just babes?
Well, one thing I would have to say is just encourage them to never forget the sacrifices that have been made by, like, the friends of mine that killed over there, but also remembering their family and community were taken, and just the tremendous loss as people have experienced through that loss. And people may feel sorry for guys like me that went through the war, but the truth is, for many of us, the battle, even though we suffered somewhat, like in PTSD, the experience was also very rewarding. The way that, for instance, my career in business and banking would not have been what it was combat. And the leadership experiences I had in communication and the importance of staying in touch with those people that you work with and that you manage. And so I think, and so that there are tremendous benefits to taking that route also. But as I said in my life, very positive, even in spite of very negative things that I went through. And one of those things, of course, remembering those guys I served with, and the guys that came back. In fact, in August, many of us, suppose maybe 30 of us, will be back to. We started this. I went to my first week 5 and 7, and we will talk about each of those guys mentioned and just catch up with each other about our kids and grandkids. But we'll tell war stories. We're just always there for each other. And one example of that is about 16 years ago, I went through a series of health issues where a triple bypass, and because of aging, had to have chemotherapy for my leukemia, and just things like that kind of all came to a head at one time. And at that same 2 days I was diagnosed, we also lost a child. And so I was sitting in my recliner because I was doing, and I sent email to all my Vietnam buddies and high school buddies, college buddies, fraternity brothers, everything like that. And I got so many emails back from people responding and encouraging. Not one Vietnam buddy emailed. Every one of them picked up the phone and called me.
Wow.
And encouraged.
Wow.
And that's just who they are. We're all family. We're all there for each other. And was will be.
Wow. Guys, this has just been an amazing and beautiful half hour. Blake Griffin here just nodding his head at the engineering deck for us here. You're listening to us jointly on KOFO and KXEL. That KXEL signal, as you know, that 50,000 watt clarion call. The AM band alone goes out to 14 U.S. states, all the Big 10 and Big 12 states, basically, as well as 2 Canadian provinces. And then, of course, KOFO owns the KC area and the East Central Plains of Kansas. And we'll protect our identity, Mick, but you have a granddaughter who's kind of a Kansan. She goes to one of our state universities. I won't mention her name or where, but I will say that she's an accomplished young co-ed at this university in her own leadership roles and as a scholar. And so, Mick, you got to be feeling some love, not just for the East Iowa Hawkeye fans like me and Hawkeye alums, even though you're an Iowa State guy, but you're feeling love for the Kansas folks now too, aren't you, Mick?
Yes, I do. In fact, after Vietnam, we lived in Manhattan, so I feel a closeness to K-State because it was so much like Iowa. In fact, my wife took a course there when we were living, even though she already had her degree, and she taught us. So it was, we love Manhattan, we love K-State, not when they're football field at Iowa State, but other than that.
Guys, this is just great. Guys, you've been listening to Captain Michael Gutah, retired captain, United States Army. Mick, past president of Trader State Bank, former commissioner of the Iowa Division of Banking, former president of the Federal Home Loan Banks, consultant for the United States for Euro-Asian relations, for agricultural expertise, and tutoring and mentoring, veteran leader on many different community organizations, including veterans boards, hospital boards, children's homes. Mick, highly decorated Vietnam War hero, flying Loaches, Hueys, and Cobra attack helicopters, earning the Bronze Star and 2 distinguished flying crosses in the process. The greatest living man I know, a man I am proud to call friend, and honored that he is a fellow Christian warrior that I look up to for his great true grit. Mick alluded to some health problems. Mick was just beset by a bevy of health problems. Mick, I don't know anyone who has truer grit than you. You just dust yourself up and get right back up and answer the bell every time. It's been a joy to be with you again, Mick. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for your service, and blessings to Judy. And Mick, I hope you and Judy enjoy this Memorial Day weekend with real great, happy, although somewhat melancholic, but nonetheless triumphant celebrations, knowing that, you'll be reunited with those guys someday down the line with our Lord.
That's exactly right. And thank you for the call, John.
Mick Gutah, ladies and gentlemen, what an epic interview with the true American hero. Thanks again to Jim and Cindy Jandred for sponsoring us at Life Runners. Go to liferunners.org, get your t-shirt, Run and Walk for Life, and help expectant mothers and babies along the way. And We thank them also for their work at Midwest Renewable Energy LLC in the East Central Plains of Nebraska. Ethanol, renewable fuels, energy for a strong America. It's lean, it's clean, and it's green. This is John Jacobson for Sean Revis saying, catch this podcast on KOFO.com. And in the meantime, until we see you again next week, be safe, be smart, be good, be strong. Love Jesus Christ, and God bless us, everyone. Bye-bye.